So Imran was part of a group within Apple known as the Lennon and McCartney of design. He worked on iPod, iPhone, MacBook Air, iPad. He's done it all. Lennon and McCartney of design. I don't know if he's Lennon or McCartney, but all you need to know is if you're Lennon or McCartney, you're two of the greatest 5 songwriters ever. So it doesn't matter, right? You pick.
All right, welcome to another episode of Not Investment Advice. We've got the NIA boys here today. Well, we've got Trung Phan and Bilal Zaidi. Unfortunately, Jack.
Still boys, plural.
Still boys,
more
with
than
an
one.
S. But well, unfortunately, Jack can't make it on a last minute thing. He may join if he's able to join. He'll jump on and join the fun. But right now, Trung and I will keep it rolling. Trung, how's the week looking, mate? Lots to talk about.
About to take a sip of I didn't get athletic greens, so AG1, if you want to sponsor us, we're still available. Yeah. I got like the knockoff version, the diet athletic greens from like the corner store, but it's got chocolate.
What was it called? What's it called?
I don't even know, man. It's weird.
You mix it with a pre-workout. Wait,
nah,
it's got chocolate.
It's got chocolate in it, I guess, to make it more palatable. I'm like, this is weird, man.
That doesn't sound like athletic greens, but you're drinking chocolate milk.
If you add instant coffee, that coffee choco, so it's like mocha athletic greens.
Okay.
Some product development for AG1 when they become our future sponsor.
Nice little product extension there for them. We gotta send that to them. Anyway, so we got lots to talk about. Why don't you tee people up
what we're talking about, and then we'll a special shout out to one of our listeners. But why don't you do the itinerary
so let's talk about Humane, the AI pin that launched. I mean, this is a guy, Imran Chowdhury. We'll be talking a bit about him and his background at Apple.
Pakistani legend.
Legend, exactly. But we wanted to break that down, the chip, because the pin, very futuristic looking thing that took over a lot of people's feeds last week. An AI pin, moving away from the phone. We'll talk a little bit more about that, and AI hardware as a whole. Then we're going to break down Marvel, what's going on there, because they had a not so successful launch recently, and Trung's going to break down what's wrong with Marvel. And if we need more topics, depending on the time, we may touch on MrBeast and his water controversy. Obviously, I worked in the water charity world before.
Yeah, we should.
So maybe we'll touch on that.
I totally forgot about that. We're doing that. We're definitely doing that. So let me get right into it. Shout out to Paul Millard.
There we go.
The author of The Pathless Path. Great name.
You went on his pod too, yeah?
I went on the podcast.
I went on there too. Good guy.
A while ago. You've been a great guy. I listened to NIA. So I got a message from our boy Paul. He's like, hey, my wife was listening to one of the episodes. She has no idea what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, that's it.
But she gave me a 6 out of 10. I have to say, if you have no idea what people are talking about on a podcast, and you still give it a 6 out of 10, that's positive to me, man.
I will say, I hope she's just being polite, because if I'm being objective here, I prefer a 4 out of 10 or an 8 or 9 out of 10.
We need to work, right? That means we got to improve the product.
The question you got to ask people is, give it a rating out of 10, but don't use 6 or 7.
Okay, you're
get
right.
The answer. You know
what am I really learning from 6? Like, look how excited I got from a 6 out of 10. Like, what?
But you're right, though. If she knew us, it could go from a 6 to an 8. That's
no, but here, you know what? We're gonna move it up here because we listened to our listeners. By the way, we got a lot of questions recently. Thank you so much to the listeners for throwing us a bunch of questions.
In the Telegram,
we didn't do an official one, but you guys are just throwing questions. We will be doing AMAs in the following weeks. Not that you should be taking any advice from us ever, anyways, but we will be doing those because the holidays are coming. You know, we got to do the double records.
And we got one in particular from Nick Widmer, which definitely sounded like investment advice.
Yeah,
so
we're
save that one.
So
just to say we can't give investment advice.
But back to Paul. That's Paul. I'm like, yo, well, what can we do to bump this up to 7 or 8? Like, I'm here to improve the product. He's like, talk about Asian mums. I'm like, okay.
Okay. Well, we got Asian 2 Asians on the pod here.
All right.
Sorry, Jack.
Yeah, sorry, Jack. Bilal, do you want to go first, or you want me to cook? Did you think about Asian?
You go.
All right. So this is different. I don't know exactly. Asian mums sounds like a pretty large
very
topic surface area.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to say the first thing came to my mind was this. So my mom, Vietnamese refugee, had 4 kids in Western Canada, different culture. I mean, she's fluent in French because of the French colonization of Vietnam, but we're not in Quebec anymore. She's in Alberta, which is like the Texas of Canada. Like that French game don't matter no more, right? And not culturally necessarily in tune at the time, busy raising 4 kids. So all I have to say is when I think about that, being a parent of 1 and how much I bitch and moan every now and then, I got to do stuff for my kid and I'm like complaining. Like my mom had to do it for 4 kids. Literally spent her entire day driving 10 hours a day, dropping four different schools. We went to 4 different schools.
That's
my mom
wild.
would drop us off, go home, prepare dinner, pick us up. That's 8 hours a day doing nothing but tending to us.
It is crazy to think what parents did.
Bro, she didn't even have podcasts. She couldn't even listen to podcasts while driving.
She was just listening to traffic.
What was she doing in the car?
For real,
5 hours a day. Honestly,
my mom was listening to something called Sunrise Radio, and for any brown people in the UK, but maybe the diaspora across the world, because that was the classic brown radio station. It wasn't even on FM radio, it was AM radio.
Oh, dude, so you know that
frequency was a little lower.
You go the wrong part of the road, you kind of lose the audio. And then No, but that's amazing, right? What an amazing piece of content that was.
That's true. There we go. We got to send that to Paul. Paul, let us know if we bumped her up.
What about you? Is that your mom's story? You're going to do that?
Yeah, my mom also. This is the Dear Mama episode. Yeah, my mom also legendary antics. I mean, got married at 17. By the time she was my age, already had 3 kids. Her first kid was at 19 years old. So, I mean, then went to university late because she had to drop out of school, obviously, get married early. And then, became a teacher and stuff like that. So she was doing crazy work, man, putting in the work to make sure we have a better life.
I don't even know if that's specific to Asian mom. Like that's an incredible story. And that just sounds moms in general. So like if I were to say, man, dude, I totally get exactly your story, right? And like what would I'd add to the Asian mom side is the interesting thing with Asian moms is probably your interactions or their interactions with your Western friends.
Oh, yeah.
That's the big one, right?
The discipline too, which maybe we don't put on the pod, but no, I mean, luckily I was okay. But I was the 3rd kid, so I know my older brother probably got it worse. But that's where the Asian side comes around. Where you got
listen, I got the bamboo a couple times, but
you
know what?
Well, that was me throwing a slipper, but like we call it the Bata Chapel, which is the old school slipper. Yeah, do you know Bata, the brand, by the way? That could be a Tron breakdown.
I know Bata.
That's the BATA. They must be a massive conglomerate. But anyway, that's the boomerang hits you, they catch it, they go again, and you get back on your math work. You know what I mean?
Bro, listen, we're not saying that we necessarily condone this to do with our children. This is the way it is, people. Different time. You're
80s,
talking the
90s
late
with
80s,
different lives.
the 90s with immigrants and refugees. Different world, people. This is just the way it is.
They had to do what they gotta do.
All right.
But
so
perfect transition into the Pakistani founder, Imran Chowdhury, and the Humane AI Pin. Paul, let us know how we did there. And if we lost 90% of people listening, sorry about that. But anyway, let's get on to the Humane AI Pin. Tron, why don't you break down what happened last week? Because it was quite a big launch, right? I mean, this company's raised a lot of money. They've got all-star team. Their background, they're all some of the original Apple
we should talk through. I'll talk through it. I'm going to hit you questions because for the listeners, let's little teaser here is the Bilal Zaidi knows a family member, a relative of Imran Chowdhury, who is
that Pakistani connection.
Yeah.
Man,
well, let me tee it up here. So last week, this company called Humane released this hardware product. It's called the AI Pin. And the TLDR of the AI Pin, I suspect a lot of you have saw the demo, it's a piece of square hardware that you put on your shirt. The input is audio. So I want you to talk to this piece of hardware. It has it can project digital ink onto your palm. That's the way it does visual, and it has a camera. Now, a couple points I'll tee off is it's $699 plus $24 a month, right? Like I just saw Bilal's face grimace. Is like, ooh, that's a big ask, man. That's a big ask.
It's not the Pakistani pricing. That's the California Apple pricing there. There you go.
Yeah, Imra, you got to come with the Pakistani price.
We got to get the Android version to get it for 200, man. You know?
So the TLDR, so I just give you the specs of that device. And before I get into the purpose of it, it's meant to be a post-smartphone device, okay? I'll explain what that means. Imran did a interview with Malik, a longtime tech observer. But Imran and his wife, Bethany Bongiorno, so those are the co-founders. Bethany is actually the CEO of this company. Bethany also a longtime former Apple design executive. She was instrumental, one of the key members of creating the iPad. All right. But Imran, I don't know if you guys remember over the summer, I did an episode solo about the iPhone. And I butchered Imran's name because I didn't Bilal had to let me know what was up. He's like, dude, you don't understand. This guy's a legend. So Imran was part of a group within Apple known as the Lennon and McCartney of design.
What?
I want you to
that is
pause
incredible.
and think about that.
There we go.
This dude was known within Apple, where Sir Johnny Ive worked. And Johnny Ive wasn't the Lennon or McCartney, well, because Johnny Ive did the industrial design. So that was worth specifically more on the hardware combination side. And he was the king, right? We all know Johnny Ive was the king. Well, he was Steve's king. So Steve obviously ran it, but Johnny was the guy. But Imran hit her. He worked on iPod, iPhone, MacBook Air, iPad, worked with Bethany on the iPad. He's done it all. Lennon and McCartney of design. I don't know if he's Lennon or McCartney, but all you need to know is if you're Lennon or McCartney, you're two of the greatest 5 songwriters ever. So it doesn't matter, right? You pick whichever one you want. So that's the pedigree of this company. They've raised over $200 million to create a post-smartphone device. Now, what does post-smartphone mean? I'm going to say some stuff and I'm going to throw it over to Bilal. See what he thinks of what I'm going to say. What is a smartphone? It's an app-based computing device, primarily, right? Where do you access everything? It's through apps. Uber, Tinder, TLDR. I've never used Tinder. Bilal, you either, right?
A nice caveat.
Hey,
I did, to be fair, but that was pre-relationship, but that was a few years overlap.
Yeah, I'm pre-Tinder, but I use WhatsApp, Uber, DoorDash, whatever, Slack, all these apps, right? It's app-based. The whole point of the AI pin, because you look at it, you're like, oh, where would you even put an app? Yeah, there are no apps, right? It's experiences intermediated by AI. So you, instead of touching, I mean, some of this we already know, right? It's like the Amazon Alexa stuff, instead of Google Home stuff. But audio has sucked. Audio sucks shit as an interface. But they're trying to make audio as like in the movie
because it
Her.
Works poorly, but I think we can come back to that though. Yeah, because the UI I think is the key here, because that's a big point you said. One is the app, but also the UI. Like all of these apps work right now on a phone or a tablet. They're visual. They're the GUI, the graphical user interface that Apple originally brought. You know, they kind of revolutionized
from Xerox PARC in the 80s.
Back in the day, but then they, brought us a new version of that with touchscreens. That they popularized it. There were people who had touchscreens
basically
before.
Just think about how computing is moving, right?
Yeah.
It goes from the DOS screen.
MS-DOS, command line.
And then you have GUI, like Bilal said, so mouse and point and click, and then you have mobile, touch, and apps. And now it's just like going Her, the Spike Jonze film starring Joaquin Phoenix, where he just talks. That's the thing, though. Like, touchscreen and apps would not work in the 1990s because those interfaces sucked. Like, how slow it was to respond. That's the parallel here. How bad is audio? I use Amazon Alexa for one thing. I set it an alarm when I'm cooking pasta.
Yeah, that's literally it. Yeah,
that's it. It's like,
I did it last night.
Okay, Google. Sorry, I use Google. Okay, Google. 9 minutes. And then sometimes they mess up the alarms. I overcook the pasta. My wife yells at me. Okay?
There we go.
So this is the state of audio inputs right now.
Yeah.
So, Bilal, I've teed that up. I'm going to pass it. You've already touched on some of it. So we're talking here. We can see a world where in 10 years, if it's her level, and Scarlett Johansson's whispering those sweet nothing in your ears.
Oh, boy.
You're pumped. But today, 2023, November 10th, 2023, when they demoed this. First of all, I want you to talk about the demo.
Yeah,
right?
I will. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Work with Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
The greatest demo man ever. I'm so hyped right now because I might have to ask Rafa to tee up that video of Steve Jobs
on the
pulling the iPod Nano.
And it is my privilege to show it to you now. 1,000 songs in your pocket, the iPod Nano. So, let's get a camera. I've got a pocket right here. Now, this pocket's been the one that your iPod's gone in, traditionally. The iPod and the iPod Mini fit great in there. You ever wonder what this pocket's for? I've always wondered that. Well, now we know, because this is the new iPod Nano. All right, let's take a closer look at it. This is the new iPod Nano.
Out of his pocket. Dude, that was of everything he ever did. You remember the iPod Nano? This dude's
tiny.
on stage.
Yeah.
Wearing Levi's dad jeans, right?
With the
and
turtleneck.
they zoom into it. They zoom into his fifth pocket. And first of all, to be fair, a little biased, Apple crowds will cheer at anything.
Yeah. But it was genius. It was genius, though.
But dude, they're zoomed up on the jeans, and they're losing their mind.
So good.
He pulls out the Nano with 2 fingers. Do you know how much
we talked, because if you drop that is billions of dollars off the market cap. But no, that's the I mean, we talked about, I think last week even, right? We were talking about OpenAI, their demo, and Sam Altman.
Sam had his Steve Jobs moment, but go watch
no one's Steve
Jobs.
No one could be, and so let's get to Imran in a second, because we will directly compare, which is difficult because it's like comparing me to Obama, right? Like, I mean, sorry, that's a bit of a larger gap.
I like that, though. That's the level you're talking about.
You're comparing like the greatest, I'm saying, orator to a regular person like me.
Like a Mount Rushmore of orators. Versus either one of them.
And Imran, just to clarify, I'm not comparing myself to Imran either. Imran is probably a one-of-one designer, product designer, like what he's done, right? Like
one of 2, Lennon or McCartney.
Exactly. And I was looking it up while we were talking. He joined Apple in, I think, when he was 19 years old as an intern in 1995. He was there for 20 plus years.
He was there before Johnny Ive.
In fact, I'm going to show you one thing. This is a flex. I've shared this in the group chat before. And for people listening, I'll describe what is on the screen, but this is imranchowdhury.com. I'm just going to pull it up. This is the best portfolio website I've ever seen in my life.
Hit that, bro.
Here we go. Can you see this? I mean, the only thing I'll say, you need an SSL certificate, top left, but apart from that,
bro,
this is Imran Chowdhury Selected Patented Works, Volume 1, 95 to 2017.
Bro, how many are there?
I mean, 994.
You don't see it. There's 1,000 patents on the.
Click on incredible.
Click on 69.
You click one.
Click on 69.
Oh, okay, let's click on 69.
Click on 69. What is 69 here?
69. All right. Patents.google.com, and basically his portfolio site is showing all the touch input cursor manipulation. So this is for anyone who's ever had to file a patent or gone through that process or knows about it. This is the biggest flex. It is the equivalent of proof of work. It's no fancy logos, no social proof, no fancy copy. It is, here's my work. Apple, 1995, 2017. I made shit, you know? So that was why when I saw it, I was like, that is legendary, right?
Like, dude, it's not like Trunk being like, hey, man, look at this podcast I did with 2 of my buddies.
Exactly.
Like, not that hate on what we're doing. But
it's not on the same level. Yeah.
On the Google patent screen, you got
there we go.
Bro, you got 1,000 patents.
That's wild, right?
Bilal had this scroll. He had this scroll.
I've got my fancy. Have you seen this? This is my favorite. This is the unlimited scroll.
You have to do the
mouse.
Scroll wheel.
That's what I had to do that.
So now that we've laid out everything, like Imran, listen, I'm about Bilal.
We gotta keep it real though.
Bilal, can you please tell us your relationship? You don't have a direct one.
Yeah, no, I can say a
secondary one with Imran Chowdhury. Explain what that is.
Never met Imran. Well, I've been trying to get him on Create Lab for many years because he's very hard to get in contact with. Even though one of my best friends growing up is his nephew, so grew up in London as well, East London, typical Pakistani household like myself. And then later down the line, when I started working in technology world, moved to the States. My friend, I could say his name, Asif, he said to me, yo, my uncle lives in America. He's a Pakistani guy as well, and he's kind of big in tech. He does tech stuff. And I'm like, oh, kind of big in tech. I thought he was like a middle manager at Oracle, you know? I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll say hello to him. I'm like new here. Look him up. My guy's working with Steve Jobs, working with Johnny Ive. Or I'm like, okay, this is going to be a hard one.
No, this is what you thought.
Yeah.
Your buddy shout out Asif was like, hey, my uncle's big in tech. He works at Apple. And Bilal's like, he must be like the George Harrison or Ringo Starr of design. Oh, cool. Yeah. Hey, cool. You know George Harrison of design? Awesome, man. I'm only interested in
I was like, maybe I'll get around to it. But anyway, real G. But anyway, so the reason we're mentioning this is to say I have a bias here. Like everyone has a bias. I'm just stating it up front. I will be as honest as I can about the demo and everything I think about it. But I will say part of me wants it to succeed no matter what because he's a friend of mine.
Is he the most famous Pakistani person in tech?
That's a good question. You asked me that before. I'm trying to think of anyone else.
You can't think of another person. He is.
Yeah, that's and what I'll say, the word famous is a bit different to
most accomplished.
I'd say accomplished probably right there, but at the same time, there's a bunch of founders and CEOs. I will say there's a few others. There's a few others that come to mind, but maybe not. At this level, this is our OG behavior, but there's a few founders, but not, I'll be honest, I'm a proud Pakistani, but the amount of founders or CEOs that are Indian is incredible, right? Like Google, Microsoft, Adobe, like a bunch of these companies.
Oh, really? Hold on. The CEOs of Google and Microsoft are Indian? Are you sure?
Yeah. But the thing is,
know that, man.
I will cheer for those guys, even though people think we have, differences with India, Pakistan.
No, you guys are the same.
We're from the same
but
place.
Like the same roots.
Yeah, I always cheer for them. But when I see a Pakistani doing it, I'll be on, that's a different feeling, right? There's a feeling of I don't see many of you.
Totally.
You're a bit more rare. So I want it to work for him. And I think the company idea, the premise of it is obviously very futuristic.
Smartphone.
Exactly. And so let's get into the details of that. So for anyone who saw the visuals, we can put it on the screen now. There's one part where he puts his hand out and there's the laser beam or whatever. And it's like an interface on your hand. And I will say that looks kind of Minority Report, very futuristic, cool to me. And a lot of those things in the beginning look weird. If you show that to a random person, they're like, why do I need that? I don't know why I'd be doing that. But until it's really good. Is it better than
the smartphone?
That's the question.
Let me frame everything with this.
Exactly.
Sorry to cut you off here.
No, go on.
There's this whole theory that people always talk about. It's maybe the smartphone, until we get the Her, this is the best device.
I agree.
The smartphone, right? It's maybe.
It's what I said last week about the calendar, remember? With ChatGPT. Yeah. I was like, the calendar is visual and I can glance it from afar. It works pretty well. There might be problems with it, but at the moment it works pretty well. And the question is a smartphone interface better than a hand? And my quick answer is, at the moment, the smartphone's still better because we haven't got enough use cases. And I will say specifically, when you had to go, they were showing a song. Sorry about the siren in the background. You had to kind of clench your left hand and move it slightly to the left. And then you will press, go back a song or whatever. And again, looks kind of cool. Looks very futuristic. But I'll be honest, that is harder than just pressing left on my phone. Right at the moment.
They're asking for a lot of new behavior.
Yeah, you have to, exactly.
No, again, we still haven't even talked about the actual demo itself, which we will. But I want to address something that we're going down this thread because I think it's very important. So when Steve Jobs came back famously in 1997 to Apple, right? The comeback device, the one that let the world know he was back, was the iMac, the candy-colored iMac. On the back of the iMac is a handle, right? There's a very famous story. It's an apocryphal story, though. It's Steve Jobs or Steve Wozniak, the two founders of Apple, had said, you have to have a handle on a computer so you can throw it out the window. The insinuation being people have to be in control of their devices, right? So this is what Johnny Ive said, which is a little bit different. But he said back when we launched iMac in 1998, people were not comfortable with technology. If you're scared of something, then you won't touch it. So I thought if there's a handle on the iMac, it makes a relationship possible. Yeah. It's approachable, it's intuitive, it gives you permission to touch. It gives a sense of deference. So same idea. I think the problem with what you laid out with this digital ink going in the hand, it doesn't actually it's not tactile, man. People want to be able to touch things, right? It's just something completely different. And I think this is actually a problem with audio as an input. First of all, you live in New York, dude. How often are people walking down the street making deals? all loud on the phone.
Oh yeah.
But it's cringe as shit, right?
Yeah.
But people can do that though, because there's another human on the other side. It's extremely different if you're talking to an inanimate object.
Yeah.
Can you
Oh, that's a
imagine
good point.
people
Yeah.
just walking around yelling like the way you do at home to
Well,
Alexa?
I guess the closest we have, I will say that I do actually use Siri, and I hope it's not going to come on right now because my phone's in the room. The only thing I use it for is calling, and I'm trying not to say where I call usually because it will probably start calling on my phone right now. Or I'll be like, next song. Sometimes I
Wait,
say
you do
like
that
what
out
the weather
loud?
is. Yeah, but I'm walking on my own in the park. So,
Yeah,
and
that's what
also
I mean.
New York.
If
To be
you were in
fair,
the
people talk to themselves
cafeteria,
all the time.
okay,
You know what I mean? And that's one of my favorite things in New York. You don't know if you're crazy or you're just like walking down
talking
the
to
street.
Siri.
So
Okay,
I
so
lean
actually,
into it. Yeah.
the AI pin might work in New York.
In a way, because people now one of the details though is I think one of the things they showed in the demo is that it was by default kind of out loud. It was like a speaker, and they said you could connect it to like an AirPod or like some sort of headphone, which makes more sense to me. But like the fact that it was just kind of speaking out loud everywhere, like that. Maybe if you're in your car, and maybe these are like California centric designs where you're driving your car a lot more. You're not bumping into people on a train.
Oh, it's still weird though.
It's still a little weird. Yeah.
We're hitting on right now why our
need a
vibes
headphone
are
for
off
that.
on this. And we even talked about the demo itself.
Yeah.
The cool interface, post smartphone, digital ink. It's all cool, but this is all required new behavior. Like this is like, you do not understand how difficult it is to get people to do new behavior. So, and another individual that works in the AI wearable space, his name's Avi Schiffman, wrote a very, very good thread on this topic. He brought up 3 points that I want to lay out. It has to do with human psychology. He's like, okay, these are the problems I'm seeing with the AI pin. Granted, he's creating, I think it's called a tab, a competing product. But take that with a grain of salt, okay?
Heavy grain of salt, to be fair.
Heavy grain. Well, but he goes, well, I'm going to tell you. You tell me what you think. He goes, do people wear pins? No. Do people actually wear pins? Hey, listen, no, Remembrance Day in Canada, November 11th, it's a day to remember the sacrifices the country in Canada made, or Veterans Day in America. We get that. Pins come out, right? For good reason. But what has Apple's last 5 products done that all make sense? iPhone.
Yeah.
Do you understand how the phone works? Everybody gets it. Oh, phone, cool, get it. It's phone, right? Little bit of interface, got it. No. All right. AirPods. Everybody knows how headphones work. You don't have to get.
They weren't the first to create any of these things, and they just made a better version.
The behavior's all understood. Who's wearing a pin,
iPod
bro?
even. Yeah.
Bilal, let me ask you, where are you putting your pin? I'm giving you an AI pin tomorrow. Where are you going to put it? I'm asking you.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, I'd probably just put it here, but I don't know if I would especially.
Is it going to be in the same spot every single day? Are you going to be able to put it there?
Yeah.
Probably not. Yeah. Or are you going to forget it, and is it going to go in the laundry machine?
And
yes.
the one that the idea I think of is the glasses, right? Because now we've got, I think Meta has their version, Snapchat had one, obviously Google Glasses back in the day as well. That was, again, something that hasn't fully worked yet. We all assume it might do at some point. Maybe Apple will make it work. But that one, again, is like, you do wear glasses, right? Like you wear sunglasses or you wear regular spectacles or whatever, right? And so that one, again, zooming out, this idea of interfaces of like going from MS-DOS to GUI to smartphone, touchscreen, they're slowly becoming more and more human. So I get it's closer to human.
Humane, if you will.
There we go. And I'm assuming that is, the progression that they're making. And the only thing I say to the critics of what they're saying, because I'm critical of some of these things as well, is that the biggest behavior changes are massive behavior changes. It takes someone to create something that's better and people end up doing it. So like obviously the iPhone one is slightly, they weren't the first to create a touchscreen, but they made it very popular with the iPhone, iPad, etc. Same with AirPods. There were Bluetooth headphones before, but they've made them synonymous with and more approachable for a lot of people. Now, the thing is with this is quite a big jump, and they aren't Apple. Even if they are ex-Apple people, it's not the same as Apple launching this, right? Because Apple has a brand that people just trust straight away. And I do agree, like if the premise is we want to move away from phones and the distraction we have with phones, that's a correct trend
and it's a noble mission.
Yeah,
it's a good mission.
It's something that we all agree, like we all addicted to. Like literally, people were messing up their posture because they're looking down all day. Like we all know the problems there. And the question is, and that's what they're betting the company on, is this the first iteration of it anyway? Is this the interface? And they could pivot in the future and say, actually, we're doing glasses, or actually, and I'm sure they are doing other things in the future. But it's a massive bet, right? Like they've raised $200 million for this, and hardware is not software where you can just press a button and change the code and have a completely different experience. This is like hardware that takes months and months to get out to people. So it's definitely a noble mission in a way, and interesting idea. And we're going to come to the actual.
Let me hit you
demo
a bit
and
more
stuff,
psychology before we go on. There's a couple other things. Everything you nailed, totally agreed. I do want to grant that. We didn't say at the top. It's like, I like the idea of a post-smartphone world. Like we had George Mack on, who did the kill versus cocaine phone, right? He's like, and then I didn't even think about the neck thing. You're right. It's like, what is the impact going to be decades from now? Or us just like this, right? The listeners that aren't watching this YouTube, I look like an idiot right now. I'm standing down.
You can't hear you because you're speaking away from the mic. Say that again. Sorry.
But like I'm tilted down. I'm looking at my phone, right? So that's funny. But if you didn't hear me a second ago, it's because I had my neck tilted. But there's that, right? So I get that. The other part that I want to flag about the human psychology was like, we kind of touched on, is like, you're talking out loud to inanimate object that's talking back to you. It's like, yeah. And it's like, yeah, maybe in New York, it's still kind of weird. The other thing is like, there's a camera on it, right? Like, same with the glasses that we mentioned with Meta Ray-Bans, is privacy issues. So the AI pin has what's called a trust light. So like when it's green, the other people are supposed to know that it's on, and red it means it's off. It's like, how are we supposed to know that?
Someone is already mocking up a cover for that on at a Chinese factory and selling on Amazon.
They're gonna have that everywhere, right? The little screen cover. Yeah. But so the other thing I'd say is, dude, it's like decision fatigue, right? Like when I asked you, it's like, where are you going to put this thing on your shirt? It's like, man, like I can barely even dress myself every morning. I got to figure out where to put the AI pin. So basically, Avi, again, whatever you think about his criticisms about the Humane pin, he's like, here's his potential, right? Here's what he said. He's working on a necklace. I'm not saying it's going to work, but instantly, I get it. I know how to put on a necklace. People wears necklaces, right? Like that leap is much less of a leap. Like that is a piece that everybody gets. Everyone that's listening to this podcast has that one time worn a necklace. When Bilal was slanging Bling Bling Empire and killing it, he probably had 5 gold chains. Right?
I had an iced out pendant, not gonna lie.
I knew it, bro. I knew it.
With a dragon on it.
The beauty with that is you knew how to wear it, right? And then you got your dragon. We're going to have the AI pin or the AI necklace. So the last thing I'll say about this versus the Jobs keynotes, and as we said, unfair comparison, but like, I'll just pull up this share screen. Again, it's unfair, but this is, Imran, you work with Steve Jobs, right? So for the listeners, what I have up here on the share screen is from the 2007 keynote that Steve Jobs did for the iPhone. He has the simplest 2x2 matrix ever, right? The y-axis goes from smart to not so smart. The x-axis goes from hard to use to easy to use. Where do you think the smartphone is? The iPhone is. It's in the top right-hand corner. It's smart and easy to use, right? Where is this for Humane's AI pin, right? Could you even make it? The other one I'll call out. For the iPad, here's the screen that Steve Jobs used, the iPad announcement keynote. Even though it didn't turn out this way for the iPad, I'm going to explain to the listeners what this is. On the left-hand side of the screen, he has the iPhone. In the middle, he has descriptive words for what the iPad will do better than either the iPhone or what's to the right, the MacBook Air. So he's basically saying, between the laptop and between the smartphone, here is what the iPad can accomplish, which is superior. Browsing, email, photos, video, music, games, and ebooks. Even though that hasn't necessarily come out true, of those, the only thing I'd say is actually better is video. And that's the only one I would grant.
You're saying
maybe
for
games.
iPad, right?
Yeah, for the iPad. Clear, but he had such clear positioning.
Yeah.
What is the positioning for the Humane AI Pin? It's $700. Who is buying this? Because it's not going to replace your smartphone. It's not going to replace your smartphone. So rant
Yeah, that's
over.
a good point.
So there.
No, that's a fair point. I think you made a lot of valid points. I do think, yeah, to me, it feels closer to, honestly, the glasses idea that we've seen. Honestly, like the Google glasses, what they didn't call it an AI glasses, they would just call it a smart device or whatever. Again, all of these ideas, like I've said many times on the show, the science fiction, futuristic science fiction thing where you're like, oh, I can speak to this thing and it solves my problems. That obviously I'm a believer in, because I think you have to believe in that if you're interested in technology. That's what people have done time and time again. And the truth is, until it's made at that level, we won't know, right? It's like Uber sounds like a stupid idea until you've done it twice, like they said, and you walk out and you realize you didn't have to pay. You're like, wow, I didn't have to even, at the time, there was no tipping. It was like, the price up front, and you just walk out. And that was that feeling where Uber said, after doing it twice, you're like, I'm never going back to regular taxis again, right? Which is kind of not true anymore, but that was the case for a while.
That VC subsidy is gone now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
no
Airbnb back to hotels, exactly. But that was that feeling. And so the truth is, I can't fully judge this until we've used it, right? Like I haven't used it. Yeah. The examples they gave, again, sounded cool. Some of the criticism, and I didn't really dig into this enough to know if it's correct, but one of the use cases, with something I do, right? We've talked about measuring broccoli on the show before. I'm doing it right now. I'm on that nice little cut again. I'm gonna be weighing my food.
You're in that seasonal cut?
Yeah, I've been doing that. Up and down for a while.
Is this because you know you're about to dust between Thanksgiving and Christmas? Is this the purpose?
This is just the general progression, Nothing,
are you keeping the paleo through Thanksgiving? There's no way.
No paleo. Okay. Just keeping it intentional, But anyway, So one of the ideas, or one of the use cases, they took a handful of almonds, and they, using the camera, they said how many calories in this. And then they said, like, break down the macros or something like, protein, carbs, fats. And what people were posting was like, the example they used that they chose was incorrect. Like it said like 450 calories or something. Yeah. And again, people were like counting and be like, that's only 12 almonds. That's 222 calories. So again, obviously the idea is still there, right? And so, yeah, if you had a magic device that you could just say, hey, take a picture of this and tell me the calories, and it worked, that would of course be incredible. But guess what? You have one in your pocket, and that is what smartphones do. And that is kind of the point, though. A lot of the smartphone apps don't get it correct, right? So the point is, if their version gets it correct, then they did something better than Apple do on iPhone.
If you're using V1 of Humane's AI Pin for your diet, you are going to be very disappointed with the results. Yeah. It's like a month later. It's like, bro, I put on 30 pounds, man. What happened?
Too many almonds. And now, look, I haven't tested the device. I would love to test it out to see if it works. It's the same idea.
Dude. Yeah. They didn't, all these launches, you want to get it in the hands. If you're confident in the device, you're getting in the hands of a lot of reviewers. Yeah. Apparently, there's just been like a product blackout, and this thing is shipping next week. So
really? Already? Oh, so no one's even tried it. Okay.
No, there's been a handful of reviewers instead of like the wide
I need the Marcus Brownlee MKBHD review of this. That'll be interesting.
He's incredible.
He's the best. He's the best at it. So again, my summary on it is, I do think the idea is very interesting. All of these things sound weird in the beginning until you start using them. If it works really well and they create that magical experience, we'll all be looking at it like, oh yeah, they saw something we didn't. And that's why they are these product visionaries that they have been time and time again.
That's why they have the patent page where you have to scroll.
Exactly.
You got to
infinite scroll.
To see all the patents.
Exactly. Now, the only thing, I will be honest in my analysis of the product demo, because you mentioned that before, and I'll again preface this by saying the easiest thing to do in the world is criticize other people doing stuff. So like, I'm always on the side of the person making stuff. You know that. You're the same. Respect to anyone even just doing this. This is incredible. He didn't need to ever work again. Let's be straight up, right? Like, he's been in Apple forever. He's doing this because he wants to
let's do some quick
level.
Math. Quick from 1995. Do you want to know Apple's market cap It increased 1,000 times between 1997 and today. So
almost as much as the shit coins we all lost in the last few years. But you're right. No,
it went
it's
from
incredible.
$3 billion when Steve Jobs came back to $3 trillion.
Oh,
okay?
3, damn. Yeah, exactly.
Yo,
so
I want you to, this dude, Lennon and McCartney design. I don't know if he's Lennon, I don't know if he's McCartney, but he definitely ain't Ringo or George.
There we go.
You, Ringo and George are legends.
Yeah.
But there's a step up, all right? Yeah. When you talk about the Beatles, it's like there's levels to this game.
Yeah.
He did not have to work. I love that point you brought up.
Yeah, yeah. And why I say that is because, again, you have to think about motivation here. Like, why is someone in that position doing this? It's not because they need the money, right? Like, the money is just one part of the equation here. It's because they love doing this. They have an idea. They see the world. They want to make the thing that they want to see in the world. So I respect that more than anything. But people can be critical too. So this is just a preface to that.
Just give it, hit it. What
on
was
the
wrong
demo,
with the demo,
a lot of people were like, the energy wasn't there, which I agree.
No, I don't want what do we? I'm telling you
what did you say?
It was low energy, bro. It was way too low energy,
which is tough because that might just be how you're feeling that day, and it's pre-recorded.
It was pre-recorded. Yeah. Here's the thing: he actually over the summer, Imran did a TED talk in front of a live audience.
Yeah.
There was like. We talked about the keynote last week. There's this back and forth, right? And the Steve Jobs thing. This is the thing about, again, unfair comparison. Steve, the GOAT.
Yeah.
It's just, this is the type of device.
But that's what people are going to do, right? They're going to compare you to the people that you work with at Apple. And so I agree.
So low energy.
Lots of people it was a bit low energy. And it was now one of the things I also say as a marketing person who has not done anything anywhere near what these guys have done, but do have a marketing background, is the classic line in marketing: sell the benefits, not the features, right? And there were a few occasions they did do it. In some cases they were like trying to show use cases, like the almonds was like, here's a benefit of using it. But there were a few things, and I saw someone write this, like just mentioning the Snapdragon chip, for example. Like now me and you have heard of a Snapdragon chip, but my mum, who might buy
means nothing,
an Apple Watch, she has in fact randomly about to go buy Apple Watch when I was with her because of the brand more than anything. They don't care about Snapdragon. They don't even know what that means.
Have no idea what Snapdragon chips are.
Yeah. Also, yeah. I'm gonna not make more jokes because. Sorry, but.
Well, Bilal, I'm gonna say something, and I love the point you brought up. I did not think about that. But people, this is Bilal with his business hat on. You don't talk about the features, right?
Yeah.
And no, this is the point. It's such a great point. This device is supposed to be a post-smartphone device. When Steve Jobs did the iPhone, famous that I talked about 2x2, but then the next slide was he showed the BlackBerry phone. He showed the Nokia, they had keyboards. He was showing this is a
direct comparison.
Dumb smartphone.
Yeah. Or the iPod
device.
We talked about, 1,000 songs in your pocket.
Yeah.
Like that was the perfect example.
It's like, what is this? There was no indication to me while watching this. I'm like, oh, this is the next stage of computing, because I just didn't understand. I'm watching him look at the features. The framing of it was all wrong. It just did not feel right.
Yeah.
Because he gave this long interview with Malik, and he just kept talking about post-smartphone, or they discussed post-smartphone, post-apps, right?
Which is a very interesting idea, to be fair.
It just didn't come through.
It didn't come through in the demo really at all. But again, that's an hour-long interview, whatever, versus like 10 minutes or whatever. But I agree. It was kind of received with mixed feelings, right? And I will say one thing to mention. This made it to my dad's Pakistani Urdu Twitter feed and WhatsApp feed, like WhatsApp groups.
Bro,
he forwarded it in my family group chat.
He made it.
Which was in Urdu. And I did the translation because my Urdu is pretty bad. But and it was just like, oh, we are so proud this guy has a Pakistani background. He's creating the future. And I was like, wow, this is really, really cool. My dad's never forwarded something like that in our family group chat. But the headline was a world with no smartphones or something like that. And I had to give my context, say this is hyperbolic. I don't think we're losing smartphones, but there might be a time where you use this versus smartphone, but we're still using smartphones, in my opinion, obviously. So again, it's received with a big splash, $200 million, and your background will do that. And to be fair, they've ship something, right? They're about to ship something. So that is more than 9 out of 10 will ever do. So respect to them. I hope it works for them. I hope they keep improving it. And I hope they create something that we're all like, wow, I didn't realize it could do that. But the proof is in the pudding. So we're going to see how it works when it comes out.
Well, let me discuss the next phase of this quickly. Let's talk about Apple specifically. So Johnny Ive, former Apple design chief, left in 2019. Love From is his design consulting firm. We spoke a couple episodes ago, maybe 4 or 5 episodes ago. Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, is in talks with Masayoshi Son to raise $1 billion to work with Johnny Ive on a hardware product. And it's for everything we discussed, right? It's like, apparently OpenAI's voice is quite good. I haven't really used it yet, but apparently it is. But on your last point, Bilal, I want to jump on this, is you mentioned your mom's buying the Apple Watch. This is key. This is critical to understand. Apple's looking at this. They're not dumb. They have been very slow to the AI race. There's an article from Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, one of the leading Apple observers, wrote about 3 weeks ago. So internally at Apple, there's a lot of fighting about AI. A lot of Siri, we've talked about shit. Been shit for a decade, right? But Apple has their internal large language model. They have their own version of ChatGPT. It's called Ajax. They're going to call it Apple GPT. The question is
also that name though. Wait, is that
Ajax?
Not
good.
They're
going to call it. They'll call it Apple
weird.
GPT. They'll figure
but
it
also
out.
just because Ajax is like asynchronous JavaScript as well. So that's why
it's weird, right? So they're gonna start running their large language model.
And also a famous Dutch football team, by the way.
Ajax.
Ajax,
so the next iOS will have LLM and the generative AI updates. So Siri should be improved, hopefully. iMessage should be improved. Safari should be improved. Search should be improved. So I'm saying all this because Apple's not dumb. They're dedicating $1 billion, which is nothing to them. They made $400 billion last year. They need to dedicate more, because I think what Humane's AI Pin shows, though, is, okay, the smartphone, the app world, which mints Apple $200 to $300 billion a year, right? They are hesitant, obviously, to disturb that, right? They're very hesitant.
Sounds like another big company we talked about on here, yeah.
So they're hesitant to disrupt this cash cow. But the watch, with what your mom said, your mom's interested in buying Apple. I think this is what's interesting. So you have an Apple Watch?
I have tried it in the past and returned it because I preferred having a lo-fi version. Yeah,
it's not for us, right? But a lot of people use.
I hate the notifications, but it is cool. Like I enjoyed it.
And for a lot of people, their newest version. I have a lot of people that own the Ultra, the $1,000 one.
I may go back to it.
Yeah.
I just turn off. I just don't want more. Basically, I don't want notification. I don't want text messages showing up.
Bro, I got one that I never use. Never use this. So, but I get it. But the whole point is that this watch, the newest ones, the batteries last 3 to 4 days. You get data on it. You don't even need your phone. So there is a post-smartphone world here.
Yeah.
Right? And Apple's not dumb. They know that that's a threat. So, but we talk about it all the time. Apple has shipped 100 million Apple Watches. They've shipped 400 million AirPods. Who does wearables well? Who can ship to 1 billion people, have an install base of 1 billion smartphones already that could potentially leapfrog or build on top and build? Can you imagine if Apple released a necklace tomorrow, an AI version of it, to develop the reps for people to understand where they're headed?
Well, it's a question for you there, Trunk. It's like we've talked about a necklace, we talked about the pin, obviously, we talked about a watch and glasses. What do you think the best interface is for something like this that is beyond the smartphone? Because to me, like, the watch is interesting because a lot of us wear watches and it's on our wrist.
I think it's just a watch, man. I think it is.
What do you think of glasses? Because the interesting with glasses is the idea of augmented reality, where you're in a mixed reality world, where you're.
That's a great question.
That is an interesting idea as well.
They'll have the pieces for that. That's the thing, right? Like in 5 years, would I be shocked if Apple is selling 100 million glasses? Not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
I think they're the ones who would do it, because like everything, it needs Apple to basically take it to the level where it's cool enough. Like the AirPods are a great example. When they first came out, I remember looking at them being like, that looks so dumb. And there were so many jokes about how terrible they looked. And like, I won't even say...
They look like, what did they look like? Oral-B toothbrushes.
Yeah, like what is that? And then within 2 weeks, I ended up buying them and I was converted immediately.
400 million of them have been sold. So here, to your question, yeah, it's dumb. And we haven't talked about it. They got the chips. They have the 15-year. They made Steve Jobs' last real bet, long-term bet as an Apple executive was buying PA Semi in 2008 to get in-house semiconductor chip design. They have the H series for earphones, A series for I think smartphones, W series for watches, and then M for computing. They have the chips that can do the trade-offs between power, computing, memory, because that's what you need for chips. You need to optimize all those because it's a small form factor. This is all we're saying. Apple's going to win. They have everything to win.
I think especially if they do the Sam Altman link up there, you know, like a little collaboration with OpenAI or I don't know if it's going to be its own entity or a collaboration of the two companies or what, but because that's where they have been let down, right? Like we said, the Siri is not the best, even if they have their own LLM, large language model, whatever. In my opinion, that's not necessarily enough. Like everyone can have their own version. I think in that
they need the best one.
They need the best one, and if OpenAI is developing that, why not just tap into that?
Well, here's the question though: do you actually need the best one? Because Siri sucks. Right?
Yeah, but if we actually want it to be a real smart device, if we want it to be a real smart device that actually is worthwhile having, you're right. Like maybe they don't need it. Maybe it just needs to be okay enough, and people will still buy it because it's a luxury brand at the end of the day. You know, so who knows? But I agree. I think there's no harm in doing that, but at the same time, that's not a very Apple way, is it? Like Apple makes it themselves. That's their approach.
That's the point.
Yeah. So very interesting.
That's great though, buddy.
To sum up, very good discussion. Obviously, I will send this to Asif to share with his uncle if he still chats to him regularly, and see if you ever want to come on the show. You have an open invite. We want to celebrate what you're doing.
We can go through each one of your 1,000 patents and you rank them.
Exactly. Yeah. Mad respect. All right, let's move on. We got a couple more things to do. Do you want to do Marvel or do you want to do MrBeast first? What do you prefer?
Well, I want to let you cook a bit on the. Let me tee up the MrBeast controversy, and I'm going to ask you about it.
Yeah.
So MrBeast's latest YouTube videos. Standard with him is he releases a video. For the listeners who don't know, Jimmy Donaldson is MrBeast. Is I believe he's now a 25-year-old YouTube creator.
Number one
and over
YouTuber
the past
in the
2
world.
years, number one YouTuber in the world, has 130 million subscribers, I think, 100 million plus in his dubbed channels in like Spanish, Japanese.
Can we say not just number one YouTuber? Isn't that the number one media entity? No, what's bigger than that?
No, I think well, first of all, T-Series has more people.
Oh, that's true.
T-Series, the Indian media conglomerate,
stuff,
has more YouTube. And it's a little bit unfair because YouTube is Is YouTube basically the biggest social network in India? Pretty much, right? Maybe Facebook.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it depends. Definitely the biggest video site, obviously everywhere.
By far, it's not even
social,
close.
I'm not sure how you define. Yeah, I'm sure Facebook and Instagram are still probably bigger, but they're both up there. Yeah, it's like everyone uses both.
Yeah. So the TLDR with MrBeast, Jimmy Donaldson, is that his whole shtick with videos is a lot of his popularity is very format, right? It's called Jenga storytelling, where you know the ending of the video, but YouTube incentivizes watch time, so you'll stay to watch it, right? It's like, I actually bought Jenga recently for my son. He freaking loves it. He loves Jenga. Kids love things that topple over, right? So the thing with Jimmy is like, so here's a version of a Jenga video. The title is "Last one that takes his hand off the Ferrari gets the car." Everybody gets that. 5 people have their hand on a Ferrari. You're watching to the end, right? So these guys, they need to pee, but they don't want to lose out on the Ferrari, so they're going to piss their pants. And then over the past year, it's just like more and more elaborate. Puts every advertising dollar he gets from YouTube back in these videos. Like he built Willy Wonka's factory, right? Gave away like 500,000, like this, giving away money, living on a barge in the middle of the Pacific Ocean for a week. Just the craziest stuff. So the latest one, he's been doing more charity. He did 1,000 cataract surgeries. He did 1,000 things, I think, for audio, for deaf people that were deaf. And the criticism he gets for the charity stuff is he's doing it for clicks. I get that criticism because even though he's doing these charity-based videos like the cataract surgeries, he's still doing like YouTube face on the thumbnail, which is kind of weird, right? It's a little bit creepy.
Yeah.
He's doing it, right? 1,000 people can see now because of MrBeast. It's like, okay,
And I will say
thumbnail's
one
not for
key
you.
point, and we can go to both sides of this because I do think it's a nuanced thing here. It's not like so simple. Is like my nephew is like 5-6 years old, and lots of people like him watch his videos. Lots of older people do as well, but a lot of young kids do. And he literally says, I want to work on the environment. I want to work on and that is like, you've got kids, right? Like, look at remember the people we were watching growing up. We weren't being like, oh yeah, we want to go and help people with their eyesight. We were maybe seeing a little glimpse of that, but we were like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I want to be
and like
exactly
whacking
the
my
opposite.
brother over the head with a pillow.
Exactly, the choke slam, flying elbow.
Fresh Prince was a great one, but
how about just a real quick one? Did you set up the ring with like pillows and jump from the sofa?
Oh yeah, buddy. Oh yeah.
My cousin tombstoned me one time. I thought I broke my neck. It was like a legit tombstone.
Bro, yeah, my brother tombstoned me too. And you gotta be careful, right? Because you can literally break someone's neck.
Even on the bed. That was on the bed, but it was like, oh dude, man. Anyway.
Great callback. So we say all this, all that preamble to Tia Bilal. So last week, or 2 weeks ago, MrBeast did a charity where he dug water wells in Africa. I think in a couple countries, dug 100 of them. Same criticism comes up. This was the thrust of the criticism. It was just classic woke criticism. MrBeast is a white guy, and he's making the Nigerian government look bad. The pushback was so easy. He's like,
yeah, it's called I think white savior complex or something like that. That's the phrase
then people just
use.
like, it's like, why doesn't the Nigerian government just give the people water, right? Not to say that it's that simple, but there's a lot of corruption in Nigeria.
Yeah,
a lot of corruption in a lot of other African countries. So now that I said all that, Bilal, for people that don't know, worked at Charity Water, which is a charity to get water to people in
those same
developing countries.
Much,
those same countries. Bilal, can you just cook on everything we talked about? What are your thoughts about what he did, the pros and cons of it, and big takeaways?
Yeah, really. I mean, I saw this. I didn't follow it super closely, but I was intrigued just because, like a lot of things, there's the Twitter or X version of it is clickbaity one-liners on each side, right? Like the people who are against this are like, oh, he's doing this to make them look bad, or he's making them look bad because of XYZ. This is white savior complex, whatever. And then on the flip side, a lot of people that I follow, especially in the tech world, are like, oh, well, if they were fixing their own countries, then they wouldn't have to do this in the first place, which I also understand that initial reaction. Until you go deeper into it, it is very, it's not like governments don't want to give their citizens clean water, right? Like there's very complex historical reasons that I'm sure someone like you would know a lot about given your history background. And then there is the corruption part that you mentioned is definitely prevalent in lots of the developing world, and even in our part of the world as well, plenty of corruption too. Just look at those trades we be sharing online, right? So, but yeah, so my kind of like summary of it up front, and then I can go into more detail. The summary is, I think it's great that someone is in his position where he's got so many eyeballs, is one, raising awareness about an issue that many people don't even realize is the problem. For people that don't know, 1 in 10 people in the world don't have access to just drinking water, like just the stuff that we basically go to the bathroom in and, shower in and do all the things we do so easily. I've gone and see this in person. It's like really crazy when you see it. You're like, I can't believe I've been complaining about all this random shit, and this is how people are living. And even in his videos, and people were sharing, like you can see the happiness that comes when you bring water to those people. Now, that's the positive. I do think I hate the phrase white savior complex because, one, I don't even know fully what that means, but two, it just feels like a weird, like basically anyone who's white who does something, do you then automatically just say that's a bad thing? Like I think that's a little bit of it's too simplistic as well. For example, Scott Harrison is the founder of Charity Water. He's a white guy, obviously. He's done incredible work. I work very closely with him. I've seen from the front line, like these guys are doing incredible work, and their approach is to empower the local communities. They raise awareness over here, they raise lots of money, and then they go and partner with local people.
What does empowering local? I think
means
this is literally a big criticism.
Yeah,
because I think criticism is like, MrBeast is going to dig these wells and never go back, and then in a month from now, the wells are going to be gone. Or because I think remember when? Okay, here's a very similar example, which you will definitely know. there used to be a way where people would make those for in playgrounds. There's those spinning wheels that kids had where you spin something around and jump on it, and that was used as a pump
Yeah.
for water. And then I think a lot of people went back. They're like, "Oh, listen, we solved this African water problem. Kids will play in the wheel and water will be pumped." And then like a month later, people go back. The thing's rotting. It's rusting away.
Yeah.
No one's playing with it.
It's a great point.
So Bilal, is that a criticism that is valid? And what do you think about it? Is the idea is like, oh wow, he dug these wells, and then no more maintenance, right?
Yeah.
And then whereas charity water is no. We're raising awareness, we're digging the wells, and we're going to provide you and empower you to make sure you maintain these things. Is that kind of the...
And that's a really good point. I'll say early charity water was criticized for something similar, which they later addressed because they realized that was a problem, right? Which was the problem here is getting people clean water, but also sustainably doing that so it lasts for a lifetime. And when things break, like everything does, all technology breaks, you have a system in place to go on and fix that. And support that. So the first thing there is they work, like Charity Water specifically works with local other NGOs essentially, right? So that a lot of people don't realize that a lot of nonprofits are fundraising orgs where they raise money and awareness, and then they go and work with local people in each region, because you just mentioned one of those spinning technologies essentially. There's like 12 or 15 very popular ways to give clean water. We obviously don't have to go for all of them. But that is the tech response. Me coming in with my tech brain was, oh, there must be a better, easier way to do this than just digging a well.
Have you guys tried a spreadsheet?
Yeah.
What's your SaaS stack?
Yeah, exactly.
What growth marketing techniques are you using?
But that's literally what it is. You come in with that preconceived notion, and then you realize, okay, these guys know what they're doing. Like there's a reason people are still digging wells, because a lot of the problem of the water crisis is in remote areas. And the cheapest, most efficient way to do it is actually to drill a well into the ground, right? And so that can actually be sustainable for many, many years. There's other types where you need the government involved. You need piping and, plumbing done across regions. But think of asking a government to make 200 miles of pipes versus just digging a well in the ground for 10 grand, essentially. That can now help 500,000 people in a remote village. That is actually a better solution for them. The pipes would cost maybe five times more.
Have you guys ever thought about pipes? Why didn't you
Yeah, exactly. Whereas like in Thailand, they have these things where they use sand and they use all these like really cool, interesting solutions there. But that
Charity Water has a big presence in Thailand?
Yeah, in Thailand, I think Cambodia. Oh, in Southeast Asia, I think it's Thailand. I could be getting it wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's Southeast.
Let me do a quick interject because in 1998, when I visited, went to Vietnam for the first time, I was 13 years old. And I went to my uncle's place. Old school commie. Took him and my dad didn't talk for like 30 years, but
old school commie.
Yeah, one thing. I looked at my dad's relationship with this ardent Vietnamese communist that was responsible for killing, or it was very high up in the Vietnamese military, and that there's a civil war basically that happened in the Vietnam War. People don't realize, and him being able to patch up that relationship. I think about that more and more. I'm like, you get older, you're just like, fuck, let's just move on with our lives. And but that was, anyways, I bring that up because I visited my uncle. I obviously never had a problem with him. But they didn't have water. The way they did water, they didn't have piping or sewage. So when I stayed with them, and it's funny because I would never do this again, or it wouldn't be my first option. But we were using boiling water to shower, right? They would boil water, put it in a thermos, and then you would have to mix it with cold water and then shower yourself. I did that for like 3 weeks. I'm like, oh damn, this is real. But I'm happy that my old man made me experience that. But I think you brought it up though, really. It's not that simple. It's build pipes. It just sounds like such a throwaway line. Just build pipes. Why don't you just build pipes?
Yeah, exactly. And sorry, just to clarify, I just checked. I meant to say Cambodia, but anyway.
Okay. Yeah. So Cambodia is much they have much more developmental issues.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, regardless, and if you're interested, I can share a link with Rafa. We can put it in the show notes. Just go on to charitywater.org and go to the bottom. You can see the different types of solutions people have, and if you're interested in that area. But this is the thing, right? That is not really, most people aren't going to do that. Now, the problem here was, I think Mr. Beast, I think his intentions are good, and no matter what he does, people are going to criticize him because when you're on top, people are going to criticize you either way. It doesn't mean he's perfect either, right? Like there might have been some things he could have done differently. There might have been, he could, for example, partner with one of these organizations who've been doing it for such a long time.
Like Charity Water.
Yeah, like Charity Water. Honestly, I mean, if he's interested, I'll put him in touch with, I'm sure he's been spoken to, he's probably spoken to them in the past or something like that. But that is the difference. It's like there's an attitude, I think, coming from our world, coming from the West, coming from, honestly, the business world, where we honestly, and I'm saying this for myself, you come in a little arrogant. Like, oh, most nonprofits don't know what they're doing. They're wasting lots of money, which I get because 9 out of 10 maybe are that. But there have been several organizations like Charity Water, Change.org, Pencil to Promise, like a lot of these sort of organizations who started with this idea of we're going to do things slightly differently. We're going to storytell the way a business would. We're going to show transparently the impact. And so like we talk about proof of work, right? Like literally right now I'm on the website for Charity Water and you can go on and see every single project they've ever done with coordinates, with pictures. And that is the equivalent of proof of work, right? Like we talk about it all the time. And the sustainability part is very important, like you said. So I don't know if Mr. Beast has and his team have, well, first of all, an understanding of what that even means, because I didn't before I worked there for several years. And two, an answer to how do we sustain this so that it's not just something you take a nice picture and then you run away. And I'm not saying that was his intention or what they're even doing, but that is the criticism, right? That is the, in air
We're
quotes.
not saying that that's right. But, dude,
because people do that. That's the thing. Like people go take a picture.
Out, right?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to get criticized for this. He knew it.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'll say this. Whatever criticism you want to say about him, everybody that's criticizing him, he's done 1,000 times more. Maybe not necessarily true. Like if Charity Water came on and said, hey guys, like I wish you had done it XYZ, fair enough. But But you're not going to help people by just telling them, oh, you're doing it wrong. Like just by like that's not the approach. The approach is, oh, we can see your intent is good here. If you want to think about the next step with sustainability, we can help you with that if you're interested. Like it's versus being like, oh, you're wrong because you're a white guy doing something in a foreign country. Oh, that's so dumb, right? Yeah, the woke criticism is very different than what
you can't like really win in that discussion. You know
exactly. Whereas Bilal came in with the here's where the pieces could be missing. It's like when you leave that village, it's not enough, right? Like they need ongoing assistance and or training so you can leave.
And that's why working with a local, like basically a local service provider who's already doing its work. That's kind of the point here, right? Is like it's not like people aren't aware of this issue. Like it's the number one issue for a lot of communities, governments, and local municipalities. And they just don't have enough resources. And so again, we don't have to go into all the details of that. So one of the criticisms though of this is, if you go into it, you can start Googling this and go down a YouTube rabbit hole. A lot of the stuff that's happened specifically in Africa, there is a lot of ex-colonial stuff that really impacts a lot of countries till today. It's not just so simple as saying those governments are corrupt, therefore they're in a bad place. A big part of it is that in some places, but there's a lot of misconceptions about, let's say, Africa or even India and a lot of these countries, right? There's incredibly futuristic parts of Africa already and really interesting stuff happening in Africa. But they do have, hundreds of years of history that they're going up against. The same way we have some empathy for race relations in the US, where we say, okay, yeah, we can say today legally we are all one people, we can all have the same rights, etc. But we also understand there's a historical context here where everyone doesn't necessarily start on the same line, right? Like even if we've got rid of a lot of barriers, there's a lot more complexity to it. So similarly here, don't just assume the simple thing of, oh, that country doesn't give people clean water because they've just kept all the money for themselves. It's a lot more complicated.
Yeah, you're right. Fair enough. Okay.
And that's what I say. So yeah, we don't have to talk about it too much more.
Thank you for the 360. We were waiting for you to cook on that Charity Water, son, and I always appreciate the perspective.
I do want to share the last thing just to wrap it up was Jack, who's not on the pod. He did share this real quick. This was his tweet originally. He said, governments simply need to adopt the MrBeast strategy, reinvest everything you make doing something people care about in public. and because this was on the Yahoo News
Screw that.
tweet, and then he did this thumbnail. We fixed the roads in a very YouTube style. Pretty funny. I mean,
Dude,
I
that
wanted
is
Jack's
so
take
good,
on that,
bro.
but it's so good, right? Like the way he's done that, and so obviously he's semi joking there, but that is an interesting idea, right? Like beyond all the stuff I just said about the complexities of the governments there is a part of that, and we can say the same for the US, and we can say the same for the UK, like, and Canada. Like there is so much money that goes into healthcare, roads, education, etc., and no accountability half the time. And at the same time, all the criticism we had for MrBeast, there's also the fact that he actually did something there, right? Like he actually went and made something, raised awareness, and he's going to help a bunch of people, I'm sure. And I just hope that is something that he can understand. There's more to it long term, and that he can continue doing that work. So that is the MrBeast stuff. Do you want to talk Marvel real quick?
Yeah, let's cook on the Marvel real quick because it's timely.
Yeah, let's. I'll let you tee that up. So the question I had here was, what's wrong with Marvel?
All right. So for those that do not know, well, they might not even know because this is what's wrong with Marvel. The Marvels came out this weekend. It had the worst opening of any Marvel Cinematic Universe film ever. Okay? So this is the 33rd movie that they've done. The previous 32 did $30 billion plus dollars. So when Disney acquired Marvel in 2009, the Marvel Entertainment Group, this is a publicly traded company. They acquired 5,000 characters, 5,000 plus. They acquired everything except for Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, and X-Men. But Disney actually got X-Men and Fantastic Four back when they acquired Fox in 2019. But the whole point I'm trying to make is this. I'm going to ask Bilal a question. Did you watch Endgame in theaters? Avengers Endgame?
No,
Have you seen Avengers Endgame?
Do you know what? I don't think I have.
Have you seen Infinity War?
I don't think I've honestly not seen a lot of these.
But do you remember the hype?
I remember the hype. Yeah. Everyone was talking about it. Yeah.
The execution between 2009 and 2019 of Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Guardians of the Galaxies, and the Avengers films, it's perhaps the greatest execution of a long string of movies ever. I wouldn't even consider the movies. It was like a 10-year, 10-episode television show, essentially. And it culminated with Endgame, which made $3 billion at the theaters. I believe it's number 3 all time. Infinity War is like number 4 or 5 at the box office. The problem with Endgame is that perfectly manicured 10-year run, I mean, at the end of it, they killed off a lot of people. Like, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Iron Man dies. All right?
Oh, my God.
And the story, Thanos, his threat to the world, to the universe, he killed half the universe. Everybody knows that, right? Flicks his thumb, get the Infinity Stones, kills half the universe. That was a high-stakes threat. So when you have this perfectly executed, high-stakes story, this is what people don't forget. People forget about a lot of the problem with spin-offs and sequels is it removes the stakes from a movie. If you know a superhero can be resurrected in the next flick, there's no stakes anymore. This is just storytelling 101. What are the stakes? And basically, over the last 4 years, Disney dropped Disney Plus streaming. You got to fill it with content. They went crazy on Marvel content. Crazy. Too much. Too many movies. Too many TV shows. They stretched their resources. They stretched their writers. They stretched Kevin Feige, who was the head of Marvel, ran these stories. They stretched the CGI team. The CGI crews were so stretched, they had to unionize. Okay? And like, this is the problem. Marvel is facing many, many issues. And the last few films have not performed well. Eternals, Ant-Man. And it's because A, I think they're being stretched. B, there's this woke element to it. There's this woke criticism of Disney where every film is kind of going away from the source material. The biggest woke criticism is Snow White. They removed the dwarves, and then because they thought dwarves would be too sensitive, but then like dwarf actors were like, wait a second, it's like,
that's one of the only
that's
roles
our
we
jobs,
get.
man.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
give us
yeah,
our
yeah.
fucking jobs back, right?
And it's also
and
like it's almost assuming like being a dwarf is a bad.
Yeah,
it's like
why is that
they're
a
real
bad
people
thing, right?
too. Like they're
exactly. It was
So
like,
again, I don't know. Is a dwarf just a person who's small, or is that like a?
Well, I mean, sure, it's like a growth,
Or was that just a character, I
growth
guess?
issues. But the whole point is like
the guy from
you're-
Game of Thrones or whatever.
oh yeah. You're basically,
famous
I think
guy.
you nailed it. You're making it sound like they're not humans, right?
Yeah.
Like you went so far in the diversity DEI path
Yeah.
that you're actually like going kind of crazy. It's like, no, these are people. They're great people. They should be allowed to also have acting jobs. But
Yeah.
you think because of your woke ideology that they shouldn't, and that we should just CGI normal individuals. Like it was so twisted, right?
Yeah, that sounds a little funny. Yeah.
Yeah, so like Disney was doing that. So there's a whole like wokeifying of Marvel, and then they had a big issues with one of their main characters, Jonathan Majors.
Oh yeah. What
he's
happened
involved.
Little controversial.
You probably
thing.
saw that, right? Yeah, quite controversial. I think it's an ongoing court case. We'll let the criminal justice system decide, but it sounded like there's some assault involved with maybe ex-girlfriends. Anyways, a lot of bad things going on in Marvel, but the Marvels is basically it kind of feels like the end of an era. And, you know, some people say, oh, there's an actor's strike, like Brie Larson wasn't able to go out and promote the film. But the movie also didn't perform very well. It got a B on the cinema score. It's like most other MCU films got an A. All I'm saying, though, is like it feels like the end of an era, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. And what are potential solutions? There's a couple. Solution one, make less content. Make sure each one you put out is good, right? Make it an event. Like, we saw what happened, Oppenheimer and Barbie. Those were events. Avengers Endgame was an event. Can we still make event Marvel films? Maybe. We don't know. They're in discussion to bring back Robert Downey Jr. and Iron Man, except he's really expensive. And he died in Endgame. But they'll figure out a way. With the multiverse, anything can happen now, right? The last thing I'll say is I mentioned the X-Men and Fantastic Four IP. So they do have some A characters. Because what people don't remember is that in the 90s, the A characters from Marvel were X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Spider-Man. Marvel under Disney has never really had a full shot at developing them. They partner with Sony and Spider-Man to do it because Sony owns the rights to Spider-Man film rights. So we'll see. Anyways, that's the Marvel story. I think we can wrap it up here.
Yeah, great summary there. Let us know what you think of that. Yeah, really good summary there, Trung. Thanks for sharing that, mate. Yeah, good way to pin it here. Good discussion. I think that was meaty. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. We've really been enjoying all the comments. A lot of people even posting Telegram, posted on it. Always great if you want to come over to YouTube.
You know, honestly, if you post questions on YouTube, we're collecting all of them.
Yeah, we read everything and I save it in a doc as well.
Yeah, we're saving everything.
We'll be answering a lot of those in the next few weeks. So yeah, thanks again for being there. We appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next week.
Peace out.